All right, today we're diving into one of the most incredible, most paradoxical battles in all of ancient history, the Battle of Mantinea. This is the story of how Sparta, the undisputed military superpower of Greece, managed to snatch a reputation-saving victory from the absolute jaws of a humiliating defeat.
And that really is the core question here, isn't it? How does a power like that come back from total humiliation? Because you have to understand, before this battle, Sparta wasn't just facing an enemy army. No, they were facing a full-blown crisis of confidence. Their entire identity, built on centuries of being seen as unbeatable, was crumbling.
And this is the reason why. The disaster at Sphacteria. For the first time anyone could remember, a whole unit of full Spartan citizens had actually surrendered. To the rest of Greece, this was just impossible, unthinkable. The myth of the invincible Spartan warrior was shattered. The historian Thucydides tells us that people were openly calling them cowards. For Sparta, that was a stain they absolutely had to wipe away.
So, with their reputation in tatters, Sparta's enemies started to smell blood in the water. That whole intricate system of alliances that kept Sparta on top, it started to fall apart, and it was happening right on their own doorstep.
A massive anti-Spartan coalition springs up right in the heart of their home turf, the Peloponnese. You've got Argos, Mantinea, and Elis. And of course, they're being egged on by Sparta's arch-rival, Athens. And they had a target, Tegea, a super important Spartan ally. Look, if Tegea fell, the enemy would basically be knocking on Sparta's front door. The stakes just could not have been any higher.
So who's the guy they send to fix this mess? Their king, Agis. But here's the thing. He wasn't exactly marching into this fight with the full trust of his men. In fact, he was in some serious political hot water. You really got to understand the backstory here, because it's wild. Just a few weeks before Mantinea, King Agis had the enemy army completely cornered. It was a done deal, a guaranteed victory. And then, out of nowhere, he makes a private truce with them and just goes home. Can you imagine? His own army was absolutely livid. They were literally ready to tear his house down. The only way he avoided being exiled was by promising to redeem himself. And crucially, they put him on a leash. They assigned him 10 senior officials who had to sign off on his every command. So this isn't a story about a confident king. This is a commander under huge pressure, fighting with his hands tied.
Okay, so that's the stage for the battle itself. The Spartans pull together the biggest army they've ever had and march out to face this coalition. But the first contact, it wasn't some brilliantly planned engagement. It was just pure, unadulterated chaos. The two armies literally just stumbled into each other. The Spartans were coming back from some chores when they look up and see the entire enemy army ready for battle right in front of them. Thucydides says the Spartans had never experienced a shock like it, but even in that moment of total panic, that legendary Spartan discipline just kicked right in.
So, as the Argives come charging forward in a rage, the Spartans advance slowly, deliberately, and they do it to the sound of flute players. Now, Thucydides is super clear about this. This isn't a religious thing. The flutes acted like a metronome, making sure that this massive phalanx, thousands of men, moved as one single, terrifying wall of bronze and iron. It was a tool to keep their cool in the middle of chaos.
But you know, all the discipline and flute music in the world couldn't stop what was about to happen. Right as the two lines are about to smash into each other, King Agis spots a huge problem in his formation, and his attempt to fix it, well, it leads to a near-total catastrophe.
Agis realizes his left flank is about to get surrounded, so he gives a direct order for 2 units on his right to slide over and plug that gap. And then the unthinkable happens. The 2 commanders, a guy named Aristocles and another named Hipponoides, they just refused the order, flat out said no. At the most critical second of the battle, we have open insubordination.
And boom, the result is instant, and it's a disaster. A massive hole opens up in the Spartan line. The enemy's best soldiers, 1,000 elite Argives and the Mantineans, just pour right through it. They smash the Spartan left, surround them, and send them running for their lives. At this point, for all intents and purposes, the battle is over, and Sparta has lost.
But while all that chaos and disgrace is happening on the left, the Spartan center, led by King Agis himself, was writing a very, very different story. And this is where the entire battle was won.
So the rest of the Argive army charges the Spartan center, thinking they're about to win. Instead, they hit the full, terrifying force of the Spartan phalanx. Thucydides says it wasn't even a fight, it was a rout. The enemy line wasn't just broken, it was swept away. He says many of them didn't even get to fight. They were literally trampled underfoot by the sheer force of the Spartan charge.
And this right here perfectly explains the paradox of this whole battle. Thucydides makes a really important point. He says the Spartans were tactically outmaneuvered. Their plan failed, orders were disobeyed, their formation broke. But when it came down to just sheer, brutal, face-to-face courage, they were second to none. Their skill failed them, but their guts saved them. So King Agis, seeing his center had just annihilated the enemy, was able to swing his guys around and support that collapsing left wing. The enemy, already broken, just fled the field. The result was a stunningly decisive Spartan victory.
And just look at the numbers here, they tell the whole story. The Argive coalition lost over 1,000 men. The Spartans and their allies, around 300. I mean, despite the absolute disaster on their left flank, it turned into a complete slaughter.
But victory didn't mean everyone got a pass. This tells you a lot about Sparta. Those two commanders who refused Agis's order, they were put on trial and exiled, kicked out of Sparta for good. Even in their greatest triumph in years, that kind of breach of discipline was just not acceptable.
So, the bottom line is this. With this one single messy battle, Sparta completely wiped the slate clean. Thucydides says all that talk about cowardice after Sphacteria, it just vanished. The new thinking all across Greece became, okay, maybe Sphacteria was just a fluke, some bad luck. Deep down, the Spartans are still the Spartans. Their unbeatable spirit was back, and so was their reputation.
So what do we take away from Mantinea? It's this incredible paradox. This was a victory they achieved despite all their flaws, not because they were perfect. The command structure was a mess, tactics failed, and they were this close to losing. But the raw, brutal fighting ability of the average Spartan soldier was so overwhelming that it won the day and put Sparta right back on top.
Which leaves us with a final question to chew on. We always think of Sparta as this perfect, well-oiled, disciplined machine, right? But maybe Mantinea shows us something different. Was their real strength not in being flawless, but in having this terrifying ability to snatch victory from the jaws of their own failures? It's something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.